In this example problem, we're going to see how we can use ABC systems to identify how profitable each one of our customers is. We're going to be Beckett Wholesalers, and we manufacture and sell furniture items to 4 different department stores, which I've ingeniously named customers 1, 2, 3, and 4. We offer customers some perks. First, if they're in desperate need of our furniture, they have the ability to rush order and get a piece of furniture for the next day. But we do upcharge them. It says right here an extra $125 is what it costs us, so we charge them even more than that. We have a 6-month, no questions asked return policy where customers can return their goods. So for each customer, we have the number of pieces of furniture that they returned and the sales value of the furniture that they returned. And using this information, we can go through and we can figure out what each customer's margin was that contributed to our overall company-wide contribution margin. So in requirement 1, we're going to go through and we're going to find each customer's margin. The first thing that we have here is our net sales revenue. What is net sales revenue? It's your gross sales less all of your contra revenue accounts, things like returns, allowances, etc. Well, we have some of those. We know how much sales value was for each customer's returned item. So in this spot, I can just have this be our gross sales minus our sales value of returns. So for customer 1, who had gross sales of $55,000, they also returned $11,000 worth of the inventory that we sold them, so we have to reverse out those sales, and net of that reversal, customer 1 had $44,000 of net sales revenue. Let me make it a little bit bigger for everybody to look at. There we go. Customer 2, same concept. We're always just going to take each customer's gross sales and subtract out the sales value of their returns. So for customer 2, they had net sales of $21,500. Customer 3, who had $100,000 in gross sales but returned $7,000 of that, had net sales of $93,000. And to customer 4, after we've accounted for their returns, they generated net sales revenue of $68,500. From that, we're going to find our gross margin, which is just the margin of markup that we had on each item that we sold to them. And it's telling us right here to assume that the cost of goods sold is going to be equal to 70% of each customer's net sales revenue, which means we basically operate at a 30% profit margin. So all I have to do is take the net sales for each customer and multiply it by that 70%. And I can just go straight across the line with this. And Excel will fill in all of my numbers. Right here, I am taking net sales and multiplying by 70%. So now we can identify each customer's margin. Customer 1, we sold things to them, net of their returns, for $44,000, which cost us $30,800 to manufacture, which means our margin on sales for customer 1 during the period ended up being $13,200. For customer 2, we sold them $21,500 worth of goods that they did not return. Our cost to produce those goods was $15,050, which means the gross margin for customer 2 was $6,450. And by that same mathematical process, we see that the gross margin for customer 3 was $27,900, and the gross margin for customer 4 was $20,550. But that only accounts for the manufacturing cost, the cost that we paid to make the furniture in the first place. It doesn't account for all of the other costs that we have to pay in dealing with that customer, which is what all these activities in this second table are. We have to process an order every time they order from us. If they rush order, it's going to cost us even more to do. When they return stuff, we got to put it back in our warehouse. We have to pay a cost to restock, to change our books for the return of that inventory. And we have to support them after we have made sales to them during the period. So for customer support, I'll start at the bottom. We have the allocation rate, the activity cost per unit of the driver, and our driver is deemed to be per customer, which means we are saying here that each customer is going to have $1,100 worth of support costs that they're going to cause us to incur during the period. So we can fill that number in right now. It's a flat, fixed amount spread equally across every single customer that we have. I'm going to say that this one was given, and the reason it's given is because the driver was per customer. But the driver for the top 3, well, that's not per customer. That's per level of the activity I had, per regular order, per rush order, per item. So for all 3 of these, let me just make my box work here. What we're going to do is we are going to take the amount of the driver quantity that each customer used, and we're going to multiply it by that activity rate. And go wrap text on so it's all visible. There we go. So for regular orders, the rate is $25 per regular order, and we have the number of regular orders that each customer made. So for customer 1, I'm going to take the 45 regular orders that they made and multiply by the $25 cost we incur for fulfilling a regular order. And processing regular orders cost us $1,125 for the sales that we made to customer number 1. For customer number 2, they do much higher volume. They made 175 orders, regular orders, during the period. Each one of those cost $25. So customer number 2 caused Beckett Wholesalers to incur $4,375 worth of regular order costs. Customer number 3 made 52 regular orders during the period at a rate of $25 per regular order. So they caused us to incur $1,300 worth of costs for processing their regular orders. And then lastly, customer number 4 made 75 regular orders during the period, and that's a rate of $25 per regular order. Their cost for that activity was $1,875. The next line we got to fill in is for rush orders. And rush orders are more expensive. Maybe we got to pay people overtime. There's something in the process that makes this activity of fulfilling a next day order, hurrying up, getting on a truck, etc., much more expensive than just a regular order where you don't have to schedule so rapidly. The rate on this is $125 per rush order the customer made. And I'm going to want a fill handle, so what I'm going to do is each customer 1, 2, 3, and 4 has the number of rush orders listed. I'm going to click on customer 1's rush orders, and I want that to change as I fill handle across because I want it to drag over to customer 2's number of rush orders, customer 3, etc. But what I don't want to change is the activity rate. And the activity rate is $125 per rush order. So what I need to do is make that absolute. On some computers, it'll be the F4 key. On my computer, you got to hold down the function button and hit F4 at the same time. If not, you'll mute your microphone. But when you have the dollar signs in there, so it says $ letter, $ number, it's making that cell absolute. So when I fill handle this, the first input, the blue box, is going to change, and it's going to slide over one for every box I slide this over for every cell. But this one right here, the rate is always going to stay the same. I always want to be referencing that same cell. So now with that set up, I can use the fill handle. And there we go. When we see that the cost to Beckett Wholesalers fulfilling rush orders for our customers is $1,375 for customer 1, $6,000 for customer 2 because they required so many more rush orders, $1,375 for customer 3, and $4,000 for customer 4. Last activity that we have to account for the customer level cost of is when they return items. And for this, the rate is $15 in cost per item that each customer returns. But we have the number of items returned up here. It was 101 for customer 1, 25 for customer 2, 65 for customer 3, and 35 for customer 4. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I want, when I fill handle, the number to change up here as we slide through the different customers that we have. So I'm just going to leave that regular. I'm going to multiply that by our activity cost, which I don't want to change, so let's make that absolute. So for customer number 1, 101 items returned at a rate of $15 per item means that we incurred $1,515 worth of activity costs for dealing with all of the furniture that customer 1 sent back to us during the period. And now I can fill handle because I have it properly set up, multiplying each customer's number of items returned by their by the rate of $15 per hour displays to us that customer 2, who returned 25 items at $15 per item, caused us to incur $375 in activity costs for dealing with the return inventory we had from them, and it would be $975 for customer 3 and $525 for customer 4. So now I can find my total customer related costs, the costs that we are incurring outside of the actual cost of goods sold we had, which is the sum of these 4 numbers. And when I add up the 4 numbers for customer 1, I come up with $5,115. When I add up all of the costs for customer number 2, it comes out to $11,850. Customer 3, with their $1,300 in regular order cost, $1,375 in rush order cost, $975 in returned item cost and $1,100 in customer support costs caused us to incur total customer related costs of $4,750. And then lastly, for customer 4, adding those 4 numbers together shows that customer 4 caused us to incur $7,500 worth of customer level related costs. So now what is the actual margin? Accounting not just for the manufacturing costs that went in, but also any variable costs that we had to incur outside of that for processing orders, returning items, and supporting our customers. And for this, I'm just going to take the gross margin that we had for each customer, and I'm going to subtract out their total customer related costs. So for customer number 1, with a $13,200 margin and causing us to incur $5,115 of customer related costs, their contribution to our company-wide margin is $8,085. And I'm going to just apply that same math all the way down the line. And for each customer, taking their margin and subtracting out all of the extra customer level costs that we had to incur shows that we actually lost $5,400 by making sales to customer 2. We made $23,150 in margin for the sales that we made to customer 3 and $13,050 for customer 4. So this spot right here is just your gross margin minus your total customer costs. So dollar signs can be misleading because some of our customers are bigger than others. The best way to do this is in a percentage, so you can fairly compare any 2 entities together. And I want to find the customer level contribution margin percentage. So all I got to do now is take my customer level contribution margin, copying down the numbers that we had up above, take our customer level gross sales, which we started with, we're given with in the table up on top, $55,000 for customer 1, $25,000 for customer 2, $100,000 for customer 3, and $75,000 for customer 4. And I'm going to bring all those numbers into this table down here. And to find my margin percentage, I just take the margin that we got from each customer and divide it by the gross sales that we recorded for sales to that customer during the period. And for customer 1, while we made $55,000 worth of gross sales to them, after accounting for the returns and the amount that we had to pay for cost of goods sold, and all the other customer level costs that we incurred, they only ended up contributing a little over $8,000 to our margin. So 14.7%, or almost 15 cents, a little under 15 cents of every sales dollar that we made originally to that customer ended up contributing to our margin after we had recovered all of our costs. And I can just follow that same mathematical principle all the way down the line. And we see that for customer 2, they have a negative margin, negative 21.6%. So we're actually losing money on every transaction that we make to customer 2. Customer 3 has the healthiest contribution margin percentage. Why is that? Well, it looks like they have the lowest amount of customer related costs. It can't be cost of goods sold because that's fixed at 70%. So any difference that we end up with in our contribution margin percentage in here has to be attributable to the customer level cost. Customer 3 up here seems pretty low maintenance in the scheme of things. Yes, they have quite a bit of returns to us, but they also do by far the largest amount of sales. They don't require a lot of rush orders. Like customer 1 barely had half the sales then that we did of customer 2, but they had the same amount of rush orders. And they seem to order in pretty large quantity because their number of regular orders for customer 3 over here is actually less than customer 4, who we didn't do as much sales to during the period. So customer 3, for lack of a better term, is our lowest maintenance customer because we don't have to pay as many customer level costs, and they end up being the most profitable in the long run. So for decision-making purposes here, what does this information tell us? Well, our margin seems to be okay on customers 1, 3, and 4, but we got a problem with customer 2. How do we fix customer 2? Well, what is causing us to have to incur all of these costs on customer 2? And that is rush orders and regular orders being incredibly high. They were our lowest selling customer during the period. We only did $25,000 in gross sales to them. But somehow they made 175 regular orders and 48 rush orders to buy that inventory. We've got other customers buying literally 4 times as much goods as they did during the period and utilizing a quarter of the actual orders. So to fix the problem with customer level 2, we got to tell them that there's a minimum order quantity that they have to have. They have to buy X amount of stuff at any one given time, or we're not going to fulfill their order. And if they don't like it, there's more fish in the sea and we can go find another customer elsewhere. So that is how activity-based costing can be used to assess customer profitability. A lot of these costs that we have in here, they're selling costs. So you wouldn't find them using the GAAP-approved method of valuing your inventory, but they still very much factor into helping us choose what is the optimal mix of customers to deal with in order to maximize our company's contribution margin percentage.